Well, I was born in 71 in Pyeongtaek. I hope I'm saying that right. And I was the youngest of four children. I have three older biological brothers. I know that my parents were divorced when I was 1 year old. And then I stayed with my father. And I think around when I was 4.5, he brought me to the orphanage. I think he was poor, he didn't have a job, so didn't know how to take care of four children, and that's how I ended up in the orphanage. I don't remember my time there. I think I was there maybe for 6 months, and I was adopted when I was almost 5 to Switzerland. And I just have kind of like feelings of the place, but not real memories. My first memory is really starts when my parents picked me up. I remember that. I remember the car they were driving, and they brought me a little toy car. I remember that. And I remember getting really car sick on the way home. And that's when my memories first started. And so before that, there was really nothing. And I don't know if I blocked it out or if I just don't remember. And I haven't been back to Korea either, so there's nothing that can trigger any memories, per se. But my mom said that when I arrived at the new home, I was very excited about watermelons. So this is something probably that I must have eaten there. And whenever we went to the beach, I was saying to her, let's get a pan and collect mussels or clams. So probably I grew up near the beach and must have done that as a little kid. And I sang a lot as a little child, some Korean songs. And I think I acclimated very, very quickly. I learned Swiss German very, very quickly. And, I didn't really sleep on the floor. I slept on the bed, which was no problem. But I kept sitting on the chair like you sit on the floor. My legs didn't dangle. So that I kept for a while. My parents, I was adopted to a Swiss family. And my parents already had a child, biological child. But he was born with Down syndrome. So back then they didn't know it was genetic or, how did it happen. So they decided to adopt a child, and they decided to adopt from Korea. And that's how I came to be in their family. I had a very good upbringing. My parents were very loving and caring. I think they're very Swiss, a little bit on the strict side, but very loving and caring. So I assimilated so quickly into their family. I always felt I was, one of them. The relatives, everybody embraced me. So it was really nice. I felt loved and very happy there. So growing up in Switzerland, a lot of people say, wow, it's really nice, and they're, wish they would have grown up there. It was nice. It was really nice. But I felt that there was no diversity there. Like when I was in elementary school, there was one other Korean adoptee, and we never had any contact. He was half Korean and half Black. So we just kind of avoided each other, even though our families knew each other. We just didn't want anything to do with each other. And elementary school was kind of tough. I mean, I had my friends, but I felt being picked at because, of my looks. And that was, hard at times. With my parents, I didn't really talk much about adoption, even though the subject came up once in a while, but my dad always kind of made it like, a joke or something. I mean, not negative joke, but, I was always meant to be their daughter, And, you know, uh, it just wasn't really talked about otherwise. I also did never really discuss racism with them. I mean, they maybe kind of knew that I was having a hard time sometimes. Um, but I don't know why. It just, for me, it was something I didn't want to discuss because it was already painful enough for me. So I didn't want to hash it over with my parents and have it to discuss it and relive it. And also, I kind of felt ashamed, like it was almost my fault. So I just never touched that subject with them. And yeah, it's kind of how it went. So growing up, I just always felt like white, even though I looked Asian, but I felt white. And I tried very hard to, be one of them. I don't know how to explain it. I just wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be different, which is the reason why I didn't want any contact with the other adoptee. As a child, you don't want to be different from anybody else. And so, yeah, that was a difficult time. But it was also a good time. It was both. And then middle school, I was a little older, so then I kind of started to fight back. I mean, never physically, just with words. Because I think I was a little bit older and a bit, more confident. And then after middle school, my family moved to central Switzerland. And even though it was more country-like, the atmosphere was much better. Didn't encounter barely any racism there. People were really friendly. I encountered a lot of people who were, very interested in my background, and they were happy I was there. So that was, it was very, very different. And I'm glad I got to spend my high school days there. It was very good. Well, after I graduated from high school, I started working to earn some money. But it was always my wish to go to America. And my godmother knew this American woman who lived in Switzerland. And she was like, you should just apply to colleges and just study English or something. And so I did the TOEFL test, which is a preparatory class to measure your proficiency in English. And I applied, and I was accepted to University of Hartford, which is here in Connecticut. And I went there, I was 22. And that was my first time really away from home by myself. And the first time really where I met Koreans. I mean, real native Koreans. They came over there from Korea to study in America. And I just kind of walk around the campus, and then suddenly I hear something. It's in Korean, and I don't speak Korean. And so I didn't really turn around, and then somebody would tap me on the shoulder and be like, probably are you, who are you? What's your name or something? And they're like, yeah, I don't really speak Korean. So there was a small group of Koreans at the college, and they seemed very interested in me. And it was just kind of funny time. I kind of tagged along with them, at restaurants and all that. And it was kind of cool because they tried to include me, even though I didn't speak the language. And I never felt like I was weird or, I would say I'm adopted, and then they kind of would exchange looks between each other, but they never said anything negative about it. So that was really my first exposure to Korean culture. Before that, I never even thought about Korea. It was I didn't really think too much about being adopted or what Korea was like. It was never really on my radar. Well, I should say that until the Summer Olympics in '88, when it was in Seoul, that was really the first time, you turn on the television and you'd see a lot of Korean faces, and that was really neat. Well, I came here to study, and that was back in '94, '95, and in my last year, I met my future husband. He was a student teacher. We met and fell in love, but I had to go back to Switzerland because my student visa was running out and my money was running out. So I had to go back to Switzerland, and I worked there for a few years before finally moving to the States for good. So I got married. And back then, I think for me, it's all about assimilation, to fit in. I think that's what my life is all about. I didn't have Korean adoptee friends. I met some, but it wasn't like a very intimate relationship. And then some they moved out of state, so we lost kind of touch with each other. I have 2 boys, 12 and 9, and I just remember when my first son was born, when I held him, that he was my first blood relative, and that was an incredible feeling. It's not, I love my family, I love my parents and my brother, but it just wasn't the same, because we're not related by blood, but we love each other. But there was no blood connection, and I think it's undeniable. It's really kind of important. So when I had my children, for me it just kind of closed the loop a little bit, and yeah, it was just an amazing feeling to hold my child, which was my own blood. So my kids are very important to me. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they're half Korean, and it's funny how they view themselves. Growing up, I can see they're, so much happier than I was. They go to school, they have friends, and their looks are not an issue at all. Whereas for me, it was a huge issue, like almost on a daily basis. And it's just so nice to see, how they're growing up, they can be different, yet they're accepted, which is, kind of what I wanted, but I never got to experience that to that extent than they are. So. I feel much more comfortable in my skin now than I ever have. I still know that I'm different, but now I embrace it rather than just kind of trying to ignore it or not acknowledge it. And again, meeting so many other adoptees, now it doesn't matter that I live in a mostly white community, and yeah, it's just, I think with age, you just are more accepting of how you look. Like before when I was a kid, I felt that I was white, even though I looked Asian. And now, I don't know, I feel not per se Korean, but I'm just more comfortable who I am. I wouldn't really call myself Korean because I still think of myself more white. But it's just, I think that I just struck the right balance. I just feel very comfortable. So even if I get like a, silly remark from someone, it doesn't really faze me that much anymore. Whereas, 20 years ago, it would have devastated me for a day. Now I'm just like, you can't change people's minds, you can't fix anybody. And, people are afraid of what they don't know. So if they don't know somebody Asian, and that's their way of reacting. So I'm more at ease with these kind of things now. and more at ease with who I am. I've always thought of a little bit of my adoption as a child. I was wondering, why did that happen to me? Why did my father give me up? Because you don't understand at that age that, if your family was poor, then there wouldn't have been a whole lot of options, even if I had stayed with my family. And I think now that I'm grown up, I don't resent that so much anymore. I'm more understanding. I have never been to Korea, but I'm actually going to Korea this June with an adoptee group. So it will be my first time, and I'm very excited. I just know Korea, what you see on TV, we don't know much about the culture a little bit. I should say I'm a mentor for other Korean adoptee children in Connecticut, which has been really nice. They're great kids, and I love doing it. When I grew up, there weren't other adoptees around. So I felt very much alone, with maybe sad feelings I had, or, problems you encounter. And when I heard about this program, I was really excited. I was like, this is kind of like a big sister, big brother thing. And we don't really, if it would come up in the activities that we do together, I'd be happy to talk about it. But it's just being there for them, for the kids. To see, there's a grown-up Korean adoptee, and we're well-adjusted, and, life is good. I think it's just important to see that we're not role models, but, that, there's people there who've already been through it, And so I really like doing that. It's just, I don't know, it just makes me happy, to be there for them, even if it's just once a month.